Let me first say, I'm coming at this as an economist. That's my lane.
Understood.
So I'll talk about the economic effects, but I think those are dwarfed by just the visceral effect as an American looking at these images. I think that effect is far more important and far bigger than I think what's going to sound like pretty modest economic effects that I'm about to discuss. So with some colleagues, we put out a report not so long ago where we think that it's more than likely that as a result of this immigration policy, we will have negative net migration, which is to say more people leaving the country than entering the country this year for the first time in many decades. Yeah. And that's going to mean a smaller economy, and that's going to mean a labor market with numbers that are going to be not so recognizable, really startling labor market numbers as we go forward.
Well, and we've seen that in the past several jobs reports when we're thinking of the share of the foreign-born workforce. That number is going down, and it's going down substantially, raising the question of who replaces those workers. Wendy, who does, who can, who's willing to?
So let's first step back a bit and talk about what's probably happening in the labor market right now. So I appreciate that the published statistics are showing things about, share of foreign born and the like. Those statistics, while, I don't mean to impugn them at all, these are large changes that are happening right now, and those statistics are probably not fully catching up with what's happening. My guess, my analysis suggests that the surge in immigration over the past few years is actually still pushing up labor supply. And the reason I say that is because there's a big swath of immigrants that are new to this country that are eligible to apply for work permits. And we have seen a surge in those work permit applications. And while approval rates are down, like for example, between April and May, this administration approved almost 700,000 work permits for recent immigrants. And so I think one of the reasons that we've seen such strong employment numbers over the past few months, on average 150,000, I think that is because labor supply is still being pushed up by the recent surge in immigration, but we can't ride that wave forever, and we're probably just about at the moment that increase in labor supply comes to an end, and we start seeing payroll employment numbers that are closer to like 30,000 a month.
Really?
10,000 a month. In a year or so, we could start seeing payroll employment numbers that are negative, and that will be like a healthy, sustainable, full employment labor market, just with declining labor supply and so declining employment.
So what does that mean for participation and the unemployment rate?
So there's going to be some near-term gyrations.
A year from now, though, to your point, if we're in a negative growth on payrolls, what's the rest of the job market look like?
So I think the rest of this is going to be the cognitive dissonance, the thing that's going to be really hard about understanding the labor market that this policy has created. It could well be that we have a healthy labor market, an unemployment rate that starts with a 4.
Starts with a 4.
Starts with a 4. It could be a nice, healthy labor market, but just we have a shrinking labor supply, and that just means shrinking employment. There are other economies.
Are wages through the roof in that world?
For a time, I think that there will be near-term gyrations. We're going to see stronger wage growth in some occupations, stronger wage growth in the agricultural sector, stronger wage growth for home health workers. But I think other parts of the economy, and particularly some cities, some areas, are actually going to see big reductions in consumer demand. We're already seeing this in some areas where we're seeing, big raids on immigrant communities. And businesses there are complaining that they're seeing much less demand for their products. Those businesses are going to lower their prices. They're going to lay off workers, and you're going to have deflationary effects.
Wow. I want to focus on the labor supply issue you're referring to, because we know there are people on the sidelines in this. That's why we don't have a full labor market participation. The Ag Secretary, Brooke Rollins, suggested in an interview this week that if you take the agricultural sector, for example, and the workforce that may be lost by migrants, that there are people who could replace those workers, people who need to work in order to be eligible for Medicaid. Do you expect that actually is a dynamic that will take place, that kind of changes to how you're able to access Medicaid could bring people off the sidelines?
So it's the theory of the case. I mean, I'll say there's a lot of economic analysis that suggests that if you make people poor enough and desperate enough, they will work. So I get it. If we decimate the safety net, we will increase labor supply. I don't know that it will happen nearly enough to replace the, hundreds of thousands of immigrants that we're talking about no longer being in this country or not coming. And I'll also say one of the reasons why I'm skeptical that this will be a huge effect is that the labor market has been quite strong for some time. And it has been a pretty good time to get a job. And we've seen stronger labor force participation among some groups, but not those groups have actually largely been women who have increased their labor force participation rates. There's some excellent work coming out of the Hamilton Project at Brookings showing that labor force participation among women has been particularly strong. Even this strong labor market has not been enough to get these prime-age men off the sidelines. So I'm not sure that incrementally stronger wage growth is going to have some cataclysmic effect. But yes, if you make people desperate enough, they will work.